A few weeks back, I made a video on 5 trades the Bulls need to pursue to add shooting to their lineup, and despite shooting really being the biggest need for the Bulls to improve their roster, it by no means is the only weakness to the Bulls game, and aside from shooting, the area that is talked about the most that the Bulls must improve upon to start turning their season around is rim protection. Really, interior defense and size as a whole. Getting Drummond in the offseason was a good pickup for the Bulls, but really outside of Vucevic, Drummond, and Patrick Williams, the Bulls really don't have any legitimate front court players. It's why you see Derrick Jones Jr. playing center, Javonte Green, Alex Caruso, all 6'5" and under are playing power forward, and as good as those guys have been in stepping and filling those needed roles for Chicago, it's not a sustainable solution going forward, and as such, a trade needs to happen in order to improve this hole in the Bulls roster, and that's what we'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, when you think of rim protection in the NBA, it's more than just shot blocking, although that is a big component of it. I think the common misconception among fans is that if you're a good shot blocker, you're a good rim protector, or just in general a good defender in the paint. That's not always the case. It's more than just shot blocking, but the ability to read screens, pick and rolls, having lateral quickness and timing to stay with the man going to the basket, and also defending well when getting posted up without committing fouls. So there are a lot of components to it that I think often get overlooked when assessing this type of skill. Vucevic and Drummond are both great rebounders. They're both decent shot blockers just from their sheer size, but they're not the quickest and most nimble big men when it comes to being lockdown defenders in the paint. They're just not. So in this first trade that the Bulls really need to be making calls for, a guy who has been in trade rumors for the better part of 2 years now, and that's the Bulls trading for Myles Turner. Now, I've been talking about the Bulls making a trade for Myles Turner really all the way back to when I first started the channel, because literally the guy has been in trade rumors since then. First, when he wasn't fitting well with Sabonis, then they moved Sabonis. Now, because he doesn't fit the Pacers' timeline anymore with their rebuild, and I always felt Myles Turner would be a perfect fit on the Bulls. And I used to always come up with these trades in which the Bulls wouldn't have to move Vucevic in a deal and somehow make the duo of Vuce and Turner work in the front court, where you would have Myles Turner play the 4, which he can play, by the way. It's just he's predominantly a center. But honestly, the more that I think about it, the more I realize it's just not going to work, especially from a salary perspective. And even though I still like Vucevic and think he's still a better overall player than Turner, he's just oftentimes not used the best with the Bulls. Although I say that, but Turner is actually having a really good season, one of his best. So you could argue that in fact he is better than Vucevic so far this year. But despite all of that, I think based on the way the Bulls are constructed, the fact that from an on-court, off-court numbers perspective of the Bulls' big 3, they're not that great when they're all playing together. And if you're going to move one of the big 3, it's going to be Vucevic. The fact that both Vuce and Turner on expiring deals makes it more rational from the Bulls' perspective, because it's possible you likely lose Vuce anyway in free agency if you don't intend to re-sign him. And in this way, you get one of the best rim protectors in the game in exchange for him, and you hope you're able to get him to sign an extension instead of just bringing him in as a half-year rental and walking in free agency. Again, I don't think the Bulls should give up Vucevic. I still think he's a great player, an elite rebounder, a very smart player with great passing skills for a big man. But it's for Myles Turner. I feel like you may have to pull the trigger as a result of it. Now, the biggest issue with this trade is the Pacers aren't going to want to do this deal straight up, because if Turner doesn't fit their timeline, then Vucevic certainly doesn't, given Turner is only 26 and Vucevic is 32. They're going to want some kind of young player or draft compensation in exchange for it. Money-wise, straight up a trade would actually work in this scenario, but the Pacers are looking to rebuild. They're going to either want a young player, again, or draft capital. And because a second-round pick likely doesn't move the needle for the Pacers, and because I personally think a first-round pick is too much to send in addition to Vucevic for Myles Turner, especially when the Bulls already don't have many first-round picks as it is. So instead, I'm going to have the Pacers throw in Chris Duarte along with Myles Turner in the trade for Vucevic and the Bulls' first-round lottery-protected pick from Portland. Chris Duarte, because he's kind of struggled after having that great rookie season. The addition of Tyrese Halliburton after the deadline, and then also the new rookie Benedict Mathurin, have kind of put Duarte by the wayside, and it's likely the Pacers don't really envision him being a part of their long-term plans, because even though he's only a sophomore, he's actually 25 years old. And for the Bulls, a new environment, a player in his prime, an okay outside shooting wing coming off the bench could be a good pickup for a player who has fallen out of the Pacers' good graces. Myles Turner, we already know what he can do. Elite level shot blocker. He's having one of his best scoring seasons, putting up over 17 points per game. Over the course of his career, he's really developed his outside shot as well, making him a more effective floor spacer, which is what the Bulls wanted from Vucevic, but haven't been able to get. Like, Turner is shooting 41.5% from 3 on near 4 attempts per game. That's really, really good for a big man. He's shooting a career best 55% overall on the highest volume of his career. He's posting the highest PER of his career, and he's also rebounding the ball better than he ever has in his career at 7.7 rebounds per game. Honestly, the more I think about it, the Pacers might not even go for this trade because they likely think that they can get more in return for Turner based on his level of production, but a first-round pick in exchange for a player they likely don't have an intention on re-signing as they rebuild for the future is decent value when he would otherwise walk in free agency for nothing. The next trade the Bulls should pursue for another big, and keep in mind I'm doing realistic trades here. I'm not saying all these are ideal trades for a strong rim protector, but in this one, the Bulls will be looking to trade for Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba, I'm still surprised the Magic re-signed when they didn't extend him a qualifying offer. It looked like he was going to be on his way out of Orlando because he wasn't seen to be a good fit on that roster after bringing in Wendell Carter Jr. in the Vucevic trade, after just drafting Paolo Banchero, and then also having brought in Bol Bol and seeing his rise and taking that starting spot. And it's no secret, the Magic have way too many bigs. And even despite offering Bamba that 2-year extension to the tune of 2 years, $20.6 million, he's back in trade rumors yet again. Looks like the intention was to re-sign him so that they were able to control their offer rather than having him receive a really large offer as a restricted free agent that they would be forced to match and then just lose him for nothing. This way they can now get something in return for him, and they're going to get it here by the Bulls trading Coby White and Tony Bradley for Mo Bamba. Bradley for salary filler purposes since Bamba's making $10.3 million. Coby, I mean, we've said it many times, likely isn't going to be getting an extension from the Bulls when he becomes a restricted free agent. I don't really see him being a part of the Bulls' long-term plans unless they do in fact blow it up. The Magic have too many bigs, not enough guards, especially ones that can stay healthy anyway. This trade really makes sense for both sides. Gives Bamba a fresh start in a new environment. The Bulls could use his size, his shot blocking, but actually would serve a dual purpose with his improved ability to shoot from deep. And then with Coby White, gives the Magic some scoring off the bench and a young guard that fits their overall timeline. For the next trade, another player that has been involved in a lot of trade rumors is the San Antonio Spurs' Jakob Poeltl, who just seems to get better and better with every passing season. Poeltl has just turned 27, is in the peak of his prime. He's continued to improve upon his interior defense, being one of the better shot blockers in the league, and his ability to intercept lobs in the pick and roll. He's become an elite level rebounder, especially on the offensive end, getting second chance points, and he's actually improved his overall court vision and passing as a big man. I personally would love to have Poeltl on the Bulls. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the NBA. Poeltl is also on an expiring contract and going to be looking for a big payday after really outplaying his current contract where he was making $9 million this past season. So if you're the Bulls, you're going to have to be willing to pay up for him and freeing up the cap space to do so in order to keep him around beyond just this season. And in this instance, the Bulls would trade Coby White and that first-round pick from Portland. And to be honest, I'm not sure if the Spurs would even go for it. I actually think that they value Poeltl more than the media is letting on. Everyone's talking about how he doesn't fit the Spurs timeline of a rebuild, and he's too good to the point where he also impacts their ability to tank properly. But if those rumors are in fact true and they're looking to move him before his contract expires to get some value, you'd have to think a first-round pick, even if it's lottery protected, is pretty enticing. Coby White, I'm not sure Pop would be that excited about Coby, but it's still a young player, someone they can actually work with, a guard either to extend on a cheap deal or use another chip to trade with. They did lose Josh Primo suddenly, so they could use a guard to take his place. And as far as the fit on the Bulls side, because you're talking about Poeltl and Vucevic both being centers, well, the idea would be for Poeltl to come off the bench initially, but eventually take over as the Bulls' starting center the following season after Vucevic's contract expires, a younger but more defensive-minded center for the long term. And then the last trade, and this one might be a bit unconventional, likely not something a lot of you will probably like or agree with, but it's the Bulls trading for Oklahoma City's Darius Bazley. Bazley is another case of a player who is on the rise, but has suddenly fallen out of favor with his team because of the rise of other players on his team. He does fit the Thunder's timeline given his age, he's only 23, but with Pokusevski, Kendrick Williams, the power forward, Jalen Williams, it's so confusing, they have 3 players with the last name Williams, 2 of which have the same first name. They just aren't enough minutes to go around for the power forward spot. And given OKC could use a combo guard coming off the bench, a trade for Coby White for Darius Bazley would be a good option for 2 players who are both on expiring deals and set to become restricted free agents on teams where their future is a little uncertain. And for the Bulls, getting Bazley gives them a true power forward behind Patrick Williams. He's not the best rim protector per se, but he's improved his shot blocking and timing operating in the paint quite a bit. He's still a good rebounder when you factor in his numbers per 36 since he's not getting a ton of playing time this season, and he can even shoot it from deep near 40% this year, although on very low volume. So I like this trade for the Bulls, again, if the intention is not to keep Coby around beyond this season and losing him for nothing this offseason as a result. There are some other options as well, but not as practical when you factor in salaries and what other teams would want in return for them. Guys like Mitchell Robinson, John Collins, Clint Capella, even Nick Claxton, but I don't see the Bulls either going after these guys or having the necessary assets to even be able to get them if they wanted to. Let me know what you guys think of these trades, and if there are any other bigs the Bulls should consider, let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.